Imagine ascending 800 feet above the Arabian Gulf, not in a standard luxury elevator, but sitting inside your multi-million-dollar supercar. This is Dubai Marina's ultimate architectural flex, a hyper-exclusive residential megastructure where the ultra-wealthy don't use parking garages. Instead, they drive directly into a high-speed, patented vehicular lift, riding skyward alongside their vehicle before stepping straight into a glass-fronted living room. With 132 ultra-luxury residences, elite international buyers shelled out up to $32.5 million each to secure a spot in this vertical fortress. At least 22 of them are global billionaires. The master developer liquidated the entire project for a staggering $840 million, cementing it as a trophy of modern engineering. But there is one terrifying detail that never made it into the glossy sales brochures. Since the day the ribbon was cut, this massive monument to opulence has been steadily sinking into the fragile earth below. This wasn't a project that skimped on structural integrity. In fact, when the engineering firm broke ground along the marina waterfront, they executed a masterclass in deep foundation design. Teams drilled 149 heavy-duty friction piles deep into the coastal crust, each measuring 36 inches across and plunging roughly 150 feet down into the subterranean strata. They capped this forest of steel and concrete with a monolithic mat foundation that swallowed 11,000 cubic yards of concrete in one of the most massive continuous residential pours the region had ever witnessed. The entire tower was engineered to sit on that colossal mat like a heavy table resting on a flawless concrete slab. The Gigi wasn't ignored. Overcoming it was the ultimate sales pitch. Yet, despite every calculation, the skyscraper is going down anyway, falling victim to the unforgiving physics of Dubai's reclaimed shoreline. To understand how an $840 million masterpiece begins to fail, you have to look past the shimmering glass facade and look directly at what Dubai's premium real estate is actually resting on. The Dubai Marina and its surrounding districts are triumphs of human will, built largely on reclaimed land and a fragile barrier of coastal desert. Beneath the surface lies a treacherous layer cake of loose marine sand, unstable silt, compressed organic peat, and highly porous limestone. This combination behaves nothing like the solid bedrock supporting the iconic spires of Manhattan or Chicago. The limestone beneath the UAE coast is closer to a rigid sponge than a solid slab. When you stack hundreds of thousands of tons of concrete, reinforced steel, and structural glass on top of it, the Earth inevitably answers back through a slow, agonizing process known as structural creep. The immense weight, compounded by the constant, heavy vibrations of nearby mega-construction, forces the sandy layers trapped deep within the limestone to violently compact. The building essentially rides this compaction downward. Worse still, groundwater heavily saturated with sea salt moves aggressively through this porous limestone, fluctuating constantly with the Persian Gulf's tides and quietly rearranging the sand grains. To make matters more volatile, when developers dig deep into neighboring plots and pump out millions of gallons of water to construct multi-level underground parking structures, they inadvertently accelerate the subsidence of surrounding buildings. Because these underground geologies vary wildly from 1 square meter to the next, two identical luxury towers built just a few hundred meters apart, can settle at completely different rates. This reality creates massive uncertainty for engineering models. Over the past 2 decades, Dubai's skyline expanded at a breakneck pace, replacing flat desert dunes with a dense wall of branded megatowers. Yet, buried in the geotechnical reports filed with municipal authorities, a persistent warning remained. Engineers were consistently underestimating how much these structures would settle. Investigation reveal that several prominent coastal towers have sunk 2 to 3 times more than their early blueprints predicted, pushing the structural limits of their foundations. This isn't an isolated anomaly limited to a single luxury address. The entire hyper-dense strip of premium Dubai real estate, from downtown to Business Bay and the outer fronds of the Palm Jumeirah, is showing identical structural symptoms. A groundbreaking 2024 satellite radar study using interferometric synthetic aperture radar, or INSAR, analyzed structural movement across the Emirates' coastal high-rise by bouncing orbital signals off the towers over a 7-year period. The data was accurate down to a millimeter. The results were a massive wake-up call for the local industry. 35 major high-rise developments were actively sinking, while a few inches of movement over a decade might sound minor. It is the nature of the movement that keeps structural engineers awake at night. If a building sinks completely evenly, the structural frame remains intact. But that almost never happens on reclaimed coastal soil. Instead, towers experience differential settlement, where one corner or structural core drops faster than another due to shifting sand pocket densities below. When this occurs, the building doesn't just drop straight down, it tilts, twists, and shears against its own rigid engineering. The satellite study confirmed that over 70% of the newer luxury developments completed along the prime waterfront corridors are failing to stabilize years after construction crews departed. The industry standard assumption that a tower settles early and then stops is completely falling apart in Dubai's unique marine environment. Instead, intense glass fatigue, structural joint strain, and hidden plumbing shear are quietly accelerating behind pristine interior paneling. The list of flagged properties reads like a VIP guest list of Dubai's most prestigious branded developments, capturing ultra-luxury residences and international hotel flagships alike. Across separate investigations, individual coastal towers have been discovered to settle anywhere from 3 to 14 inches past their initial engineering forecasts. The warnings have been sitting in peer-reviewed scientific journals and municipal filings for years, all while the broader skyline continued to push higher into the sky, seemingly indifferent to the unstable ground, performing a slow-motion retreat beneath its feet. For the wealthy expats and high-net-worth investors who bought into these sky-high dreams, the reality of differential settlement isn't a theoretical engineering problem. It's an ongoing, high-stakes financial nightmare. Walk through the corridors of some of Dubai's most expensive addresses, past the gold leaf lobbies and automated security gates, and you'll find the unmistakable signs of a building under extreme structural stress. It starts small. Elite tenants, from British hedge fund managers to European tech executives, report interior doors that suddenly jam in their frames, custom Italian marble tiles hairline fracturing underfoot, and floor-to-ceiling glass panels making unsettling, metallic popping sounds during the heat of the day. But deeper down, inside the utility shafts and mechanical rooms, the consequences are far more severe. When a 60-story tower tilts even a fraction of an inch, the rigid vertical pipes carrying water, sewage, and electrical conduits are forced to bend. Joint seals fail, leading to mysterious, catastrophic leaks behind apartment walls that ruin bespoke finishes and trigger massive mold outbreaks in a climate where indoor humidity is a constant battle. What makes this truly alarming is the complete lack of transparency. Because many of these premium units are owned by offshore holding companies or wealthy investors who keep them as empty, secondary wealth stores, structural issues can worsen for months before anyone notices. When the orbital satellite data mapping this subsidence finally leaked to the public, the vast majority of current owners and prospective buyers found out about it through independent investigative journalism, not from the developers or the building management. Under local real estate frameworks, developers are legally bound to guarantee structural integrity for 10 years post-completion under decennial liability laws. However, as these luxury towers approach and pass that decade mark, the crushing financial burden of managing ongoing subsidence shifts directly onto the homeowners associations and property management firms. The cost of continuously patching cracked infrastructure, replacing warped elevator tracks, and hiring specialized geotechnical teams to inject stabilizing resins deep into the shifting sand below can quickly skyrocket into millions of dollars. This forces sudden, massive maintenance fee hikes that catch owners completely off guard. The developers who cashed their massive checks years ago have already moved on to the next mega project, leaving a generation of luxury buyers to foot the bill for a landscape that refuses to stay still. As the ground keeps moving a few millimeters at a time, the ultimate question is, who will be left holding the bill over the next 40 years? Insurance policies across the region are notorious for covering sudden, catastrophic structural collapses, but they routinely reject claims for slow, long-term subsidence that quietly cracks pipes and warps slabs over decades. While municipal building codes remain incredibly strict on paper, the legal frameworks simply haven't kept pace with satellite-era data. There are no mandatory disclosures requiring developers or brokers to hand over orbital ground tracking reports to a prospective buyer. Yet, despite these flashing warning signs, the race to build higher on the sand has only accelerated. Right now, the exact same developer is pushing ahead with an even grander sequel, an ultra-luxury tower slated to become one of the tallest oceanfront residential structures in the world, complete with multiple signature car elevators and a multi-million-dollar penthouse layout. In late 2025, crews executed one of the largest continuous concrete foundation pours in history, churning out a massive structural mat over the exact same porous limestone and shifting marine sands. The projected sellout is well over $1 billion. Marketing arrives with flawless CGI rendering and absolute certainty, but the geology will always have the final say. This isn't an immediate collapse warning. The built-in engineering safety margins will likely hold for now. It is a slow-motion financial reckoning. Decades from now, when the sales centers are long gone and the original developers have moved on to the next mega project, the crushing cost of maintaining these tilting monuments of glass and steel will fall squarely on the people who bought the dream. If you want to see the truth behind the world's most aggressive